Howdy, and welcome to the True North Leader Podcast. I'm Bobby Albert, and today I am also not only the host, but also the guest. And I'm the CEO of Values Driven Culture. Well, when I was 20 years old, life was really good. I just recently graduated from our local university, and I was engaged to marry my wife. Now, there was a evening that I will never forget is when my dad died unexpectedly, and I was thrust to become the leader of our small family and uh, business of only 5 employees. And it was tough. I mean, I found myself in crisis mode every day, just scraping and scraping and scraping. And not too long after that, I learned that we were heavy in debt. And all the debt was due within 1 year, in other words, short term. And the other big surprise was our total gross revenue equal about the same amount of the debt that was due within 1 year. I mean, you could tell financially we were way upside down. My dad, I don't understand why, but he had 3 bankers at that time. And of course, you can understand these 3 bankers wanted to shut us down and just take whatever they could to pay off the debt, to get as much paid off as quickly as possible, because they're looking across the table with a 20-year-old at this time. Well, with a lot of people helping me, we were very fortunate that in that first year, we were able to grow the revenue by 252% and had the highest profit in the history of the company. Now, part of one of the things, besides a lot of people helping me, is that I was also fortunate to be able to hang out with my dad ever since I was a little boy. And I had worked in the business just as a little boy all the way up through college, because I graduated from the local university. And I did a lot of the paperwork for my dad while I was in college. He would have me come in on Saturdays, and I did some of his bookkeeping. The only thing I didn't do was his payroll. So I had a lot of experience in the business, but not to the level of being the leader, and especially at the young age. There were some principles I'd like to share with you that I learned during that first year. The first one was I had to just keep it simple. Like I tell people, look, I'm from Texas. I'm a simple man. I have a simple mind, just keep it simple. And there were 3 things that I learned very looking at what was the simple things I got to do. And it was flat out to increase revenue, reduce expenses, and increase productivity. It couldn't get any simpler than that. The second principle I learned was that never ask your people to go where you have never gone. Well, I tell you what, just to keep the doors open, I worked 7 days a week. And our core business originally was a furniture reupholstery and refinishing business. Later on, my dad started a local moving and storage company. And most of my time I spent working in the local moving and storage business, which ended up being the bread and butter of our company. So what I found myself is on the weekend, I would go in and load trucks and unload trucks. I would do the paperwork for the upcoming week and all of the billing of the past week. And that's what I did on the weekends. The third principle that I learned there is to take underutilized assets and to dispose of them. Well, my dad, out of these 5 employees that we had, Two of them had vehicles that my dad furnished as part of their condition of employment. And I wasn't going to take those away from them. So I sold my personal car to pay down some of the debt. And it just so happened one of those two people drove by my home every day, coming to work and going home. And I asked them if they mind picking me up in the morning and then taking me home in the evening. And of course, sometimes in the evenings, they waited on me because I have work I needed to get done. And they did it for about 2 years, if you can imagine that. The fourth thing is talking about reducing expenses. Well, now you got to realize, again, I was 20 years old and I needed to ask these 5 employees to take a pay cut. Now, just think about it. If you went to your employees today and asked them to take a pay cut, it's not going to be a happy day. And that's the reason why when I had to sit down one-on-one with these people is that, I mean, I was shaking. My lips were shaking. I was sweating. I've never had a tough conversation like that because I knew I was impacting people's lives and their families. But you know what surprised me? I got 100% acceptance. When I look back on that, I think the reason why those 5 people accepted the pay cut is that they had a lot of respect for my dad because my dad really took care of the people. And that's something I learned as well. And when all those years growing up as a little boy working next to them, I was able to earn their respect because I took on the attitude, not as a boss's son, but I went out there to serve them. In other words, it helped me to learn what servant leadership is all about. And because of that, I think I had earned their respect as well as since I worked next to them, they had the confidence that we were going to pull this out. Well, the fifth thing was to advertise today for sales tomorrow. When I looked at our furniture, upholstery, and refinishing business, is that I could see there were some other additional underutilized assets there, especially the personnel that was working there. So I advertised in that business and we did significantly increase the revenue in that area of the business. The sixth thing and the last thing is that training has a return on an investment. I was fortunate to receive advance notice that we were going to see a substantial increase in our moving and storage business. And going into what we call the peak season, most people relocate during when the kids are out of school. So I hired 15 of my college buddies, and to get them up to speed as quickly as possible, because you got to realize, I mean, they're out of school and bang, I needed them like the next day. I searched and came across some training material in the moving and storage industry it's still fresh in my mind. And what the title of it was, How You Act is as important as how you pack. And the application back then, it certainly was important, but it still applies today in how you act is as important as how you pack. And the training gave lots of examples and behaviors out there in front of the customer that had little to do with the skills of packing and loading of trucks. Well, from that point forward, that had the impact on those 6 principles there had the impact of us being able to increase our revenue by 252% and the highest profit in the history of the company. And now the bank was ready to loan me some more money to keep the business going. And from that point, our company just kept growing, kept growing, kept growing, kept growing until I sold the company in 2011 with over 150 employees to a publicly traded company. And we had grown the moving and storage business to the point where we were relocating tens of thousands of customers from California to Illinois, from Florida to Virginia, from the state of Washington to the state of Connecticut, and even internationally. And so those simple little principles was what helped us get over that first year. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you today, because I have been recently asked, what in the world did you do during that first year? Well, please feel free to stay up with me at bobbyalbert.com for this True North Leader podcast. And I'd like to leave with you a free gift that I want to share with you. It's called a cultural assessment tool to help you learn about the kind of culture you have in your organization. And the link will be in the show notes, but it's pretty simple. It's bobbyalbert.com/cultural checkup. It's treated like one word. Again, bobbyalbert.com/cultural checkup. And I look forward to talking with you again on our next True North Leader podcast.